Hey, welcome everybody. Today is Thursday, and we will be discussing some cool stuff. Um, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope you found the readings not too demanding. The readings I thought were really enjoyable. How about you? Did you enjoy the readings? Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, good morning. Morning historians.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I'm really glad. So what did you like about it, Nolan? What was your impression?
It was just it was just very interesting. Like how how the government was initially pushing for racial equality, but not for the reasons that we think.
Yes, right. And that isn't shocking in a way. It's like you don't get that in most history books, right? It's pretty much and like that's why I wanted to start out with a question. Um yeah, like to dovetail off that, what you just stated is where the questions. Oops, sorry, wrong class. So the questions are right here. So yeah, so we're all taught in schools, right, that the Civil War was fought to end slavery, racial equality, and it's much more complicated than that. But that's like, how we're all, to be honest, that's how all history is taught. It's really, really, to me, um, elementary, simplistic, when it's history is much more complicated. And that should be a capital Civil War. My apologies for that. So yeah, and Nolan, so what was your I'm gonna go back to you, Nolan. What was your can you keep going with that comment, if you don't mind?
Yes, both during and after the Civil War, they the government figured that they would need more people to support their causes. So the Emancipation Proclamation allowed more black soldiers to be to be recruited into the Union Army, and the government also allowed more black politicians into office, and even encouraging Southern African Americans to to vote to vote.
Yes, right. And so they needed the bodies. And so that's the Emancipation Proclamation was a military tactic to get folks to sign up because they needed soldiers. And that was, it's pretty mind-blowing, right? To hear about that perspective of the Emancipation Proclamation. I was floored personally. And so it just kind of shows you how history is much more, the truth is always more interesting. And I think if people were to understand the truth, they might like history, actually, and I hope that's what you are. I'm kind of inspiring you to keep going on this journey throughout your life. I'm never going to stop learning history personally. So yes, yeah, just an idea too. When you guys, if you go down to and I'll you can talk. Hold on a second, Tyler. So yeah, you can always raise your hand with the little reactions. If you go down the bottom, there's a little hand raise thing. So yeah, I'm just saying, just an idea. You can raise your hand physically as well. So yeah, go on, Tyler. You want to keep going on this thread of thought?
Uh, one thing that I wouldn't say surprised. One thing I thought was uh I won't put cool because cool is not the right it's I was kind of shocked that poor white people white people actually helped out free slaves.
Yeah. So you're talking about how the poor whites helped out the slaves?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was definitely, and what did they do to kind of stop that? There was a line in there where the rich whites, right, just for lack of a better term, they did something. Do you know what they did?
Oh God. They I'm not I guess they
Yeah, so just to answer your question, my own question is they segregated them, they separated them,
oh yeah
right?
that's what I was thinking they
Yeah.
were segregate they segregated
The other thing that they did as well is they
like
used
red line
religion.
or something.
Religion was
Like
another thing they used. Um, but we'll carry well that's kind of going off topic. So yeah, there was this kind of, and then the next chapter really is gonna on that thread exactly you stated, Tyler, is the next chapter is exactly about that exactly. So I'm glad we brought that up
we
now.
use a method called uh redlining. That's what I think it's called for segregation.
Yeah, yeah, segregation was used kind of from the beginning. They were always scared of slave revolts. And one of the main reasons that's not covered in this book is Haiti. So Haiti was a slave state country, and
Yeah, I know.
they overthrew the French. So in their minds of the Southern, these slave owners are always so worried about these slave revolts. And that's kind of said in this chapter, but they don't mention Haiti. Haiti was a big event worldwide that that really shook the fabric of it.
Yeah,
So yeah, I kind of want to hear everyone's voice if you don't mind talking today. If you didn't do the reading, that's okay too. So anyone want to chime in on any one of these questions, new or one already covered, please? This is also an opportunity for me to meet you. So I could start calling on people, but I'd rather not.
I can go. Oh,
Okay, Josh, and then whoever spoke after Josh can go.
okay. I thought it's kind of like a mixture of both question 1 and 2. Piggybacking off of the previous thing, I think it was very interesting how everything was used to further the Union, to keep them either from staying together, to not let them secede, but that, well, I also like that it was through like the viewing lens of like African American people and how they were just kind of being used all over the place, whether it was in that, and everything was like pushed in a way that it was for Black people, but it wasn't. It was using them to say that it was like to keep the Union from seceding, to in the Emancipation Proclamation to keep to be able to use them for soldiers to help better the North win the war, or later down the line when they use them to like even make themselves richer. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I want to comment on that, but I'll wait till the end. So yeah, exactly. It wasn't, it's like it wasn't what it seemed and why they did it. And they had all this euphemistic phrasing. And governments do that all the time. They still do that. And they hide their true intentions through this kind of fluffy, euphemistic words, free and slavery. So, and I teach Native American history, and it's particularly in that case, they do use it with Native Americans all day long. And it's always hiding the real truth through these euphemisms. Okay, so yes. So now how about, so who didn't talk yet?
I was gonna go next.
All right,
We, like,
Bethany.
spoke at the same time.
Okay,
Yeah, also my video's off because when I turn it on, it gets all disconnected.
that's
So
fine. That's okay.
question number 5 about the Georgia legislature, and I thought it was really interesting how they did have Black members and they were a lot of the majority. And I think that's not really talked about because it's like such a dramatic change between then after the Civil War until now. And just like them getting all their civil rights, because they had a lot after the war, but then like a total reversal. And they did kick them out, to my knowledge, because the Republicans wanted them out. But then they got their seats back and then focused on civil rights. So I thought it was interesting that, yes, they were freed technically, but not forever, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty crazy, right? All the legislatures, the Black legislators, and I think there was senators and congressmen. And this is at the very, because of the Civil Rights Act, there was a couple Civil Rights Act of 1875, and all these things. So everything was pushing towards equality. And I think that's the key word, an equality to vote, equality to public space. And that's what initially initially happened. And then you have this reaction. And that's what we're going to cover after this course. And then you have the rise of the KKK. And you have all these things that were, Black codes that were in response to this kind of opening the floodgates. And the reality of it is that white America didn't want equality. They didn't. Some did. There's always good people in every era, and that should always be stated. But the majority did not want equality. They did not want legislators, and so there was this kind of reaction. And one thing I want to state in this course too, if you're thinking about paper topics, start thinking about them now. Because what I would do if I were you, use current events, contemporary events, and use history to shed light on what's going on. For instance, the Black Lives Matter movement. Most people don't understand it. They go, what's going on? I don't get it. And that's because they don't know their history. Okay, if you read, for anyone who's doesn't understand Black Lives Matter, read chapter 9 of A People's History of the United States, Howard Zinn. Read chapter 9. Then you see why. Because at the end of the day, all Black folks want is an equality. Like, wouldn't you if you were Black? I would. I'm Native American. I look 25%. I don't really look it, but I was born and raised on a reservation. And I want equality. I want an equal opportunity. I want to go to Harvard if I'm good enough. And Native Americans don't have those equal opportunities. If I was born and raised in La Jolla, I probably would have went to Harvard, in all honesty, because I was really good at school, but I didn't have the advantage like, rich white America has. And at the end of the day, these Black Lives Matter movements are historical. They have precedence. And so just paper topics, that's what I would write about if it were me, just an idea. So yeah, the other thing is these voting suppression. So you have voter suppression immediately after that. They're doing that now, right? With this current election that we just had. Georgia just turned blue. So there's a lot of current contemporary events you can write about and use this class to understand it. So yeah, I really appreciate that comment, Bethany. Thank you. That was good. So yeah. And again, a lot of this stuff is new for me too. So I'm kind of learning this stuff with you as well. I took the normal history classes just like you, and here I am being re-educated. That's what we're doing here, right? We're being re-educated on the truth. And I've been doing this for quite some time. So I'm not starting from zero. but a lot of these things are new to me as well. So yeah, so the other thing to respond to that Emancipation Proclamation being a military tactic, there were 4 million blacks in the South at the time. So they realized, and this was towards the end of the war, that and this is not really related to the Emancipation Proclamation, but it is because it's the South and they were doing the same thing for the same reason, was that they wanted to use these soldiers to win the war, because they carry, war is one of those things where after the third, fourth year, you start getting tired. So you're like, what do? You start, anything's on the table. And so the South started doing those things too, offering them freedom. So both sides were doing it. And yeah, so I don't want to, I kind of want to let everyone else talk, keep going before I talk. So I wanted to hear everyone's voice. Anyone ready to go talking about anything? Even if you didn't read, I'm sure you can comment on something, right? Current events, anything really.
Well, I thought it was interesting that to draw the connection between how America's always been primarily an economic state, even now controlled by the wealthy elites,
Yes,
if you will. It's just interesting to see that kind of you can't teach an old dog new tricks kind of thing. I don't know.
true. Yes, I mean, you kind of stole my thunder. I mean, that's exactly what I'm going to talk about towards the end, Kevin. So yeah, exactly. You're on the money. Pun intended. Yes, go for it, Tyler.
One thing I found interesting is that that those poor white people that I spoke about, it turns out that Irish immigrant, the reason why they Irish immigrant workers actually were discriminated too. That's one thing I found interesting.
Yes, and to respond to that is, Irish were considered Negroes, in that terminology, or blacks, and they were considered on that social stratus, and they would fight for the same jobs, fight for the same space, and they were discriminated and racially profiled in a similar way. So the Irish are this weird kind of historical thing, and that is kind of an anomaly in American race and ethnicity history, in that the Irish were like less than, they weren't white, for lack of a better word. So yeah, the Irish, and this is part of a response for the Irish potato famine. And I've been to Ireland before, and there's murals everywhere for the Irish potato famine. I think 1 million people died, something insane like that. And the British were responsible for that. And because they basically cut their crop on purpose, and that's debatable as well. So yeah, so when the Irish came over here, they were like destitute, right? So they're not like us, the other white folks said. And so yeah, the Irish are that's another good paper topic. If you're Irish, I would consider that as a paper topic. Yes, you look like you're ready to go, Fadi. Is that how I say your name?
Yeah, that's correct. My name is
All right,
Fadi.
man. You look like you're ready, man.
Yeah, I have a question. So
Yeah.
why the history is repeat itself, like from the past to present, same issues, same problems, and nothing gets solved. It's like circle.
Yes, and here's how I would answer that question, Fadi, is okay. Think of your family, right? And I come from a really kind of a lot of stuff happened in my family, and still is happening. I'm Native American. We have a lot of those stereotypes you hear about are kind of true, but they're wrong, and in a way that we're not all like that. But there's problems with alcohol. Big problems with drugs and alcohol and all these things. And I don't even drink anymore, for instance, because I hate it. But anyways, I'm using this as an example to answer your question, is when we grow up and we see stuff in our own lives and our parents struggled, we have an opportunity to break that cycle in our generation. Like, I don't drink anymore, right? I try not to cuss anymore. I just try to be different. I try to break the cycle so my kids don't pass it on. And that cussing one's hard. That's the hardest one. I got a terrible mouth, but I'm that's like my New Year's resolution. So we have an opportunity, every one of us, every generation, to change. But it's hard to acknowledge it first, and then the changing it. So each generation has that opportunity. Like for now, right? We're like, oh, we're gonna change this race thing, right? George Floyd was 8 minutes and 36 seconds. So the police officer held his knee on his neck and killed him. You know, I can't breathe. All this, you know, you see all this movement going, and so, but that's a lot. But so the acceptance, the understanding is the easy part. The change is the hard part. That's where I'm getting at, you know, because now I got to go out there on social events and I got to not drink, right? I got to pass up drink. It's easy to say, okay, I'm not drinking anymore, but to actually do it, go to parties, go to Thanksgiving, go to Christmas, it's going to be hard, you know, and that's the hard work we as a society have to do. Okay, you don't want to do race, you don't want to be a racist anymore. Well, now go and do it. Show me, make the change, make the lifestyle change. And when someone's maybe being racist, stand up to them. Tell them, hey, I don't do that. How many people are going to do that? Right? Probably half of them won't, even though they said they did, they will, because you got to be brave, you got to have conviction, and you got to have beliefs that are stronger than other things. And so that's really, I guess I would use a microcosm as a macrocosm of how society is. So in a way, you can use your own life as an example to everyone else's life, you know, because it's one person at a time, it's one family at a time. That's how we change society, you know. It's and so I don't know. I can keep going on this one though, Fadi. But yes, it's and the other thing too, just to also answer your question, Fadi, is we don't know our history. So how are we going to change if we don't know our past? You know, and that's the problem. People aren't knowing, they don't know their history. So like when the Black Lives Matter thing happened, when all this summer happened, I knew exactly why. And people were puzzled. It's like, yeah, because you don't read. You know what I'm saying? Like if our nation read more, if we understood these things more, it would just maybe become more natural. I can keep going, but I'm not. Yes, the age-old history question. I like it. Yeah, don't make that a paper topic, by the way. You can't ever finish that one. Yeah, maybe make it a little narrow topic if you're gonna do that one. It was only okay, yeah. So okay, South fought to defend the rights, including slavery, while the North fought to reunite the states. Was fought over secession. Yeah, you're right. Good one. So yeah, so at the end of the day, just to read the comment, the North was fighting to keep the Union. That's all they cared about, right? And they just wanted the Union at any cost, and they wanted slavery. Slavery was like a priority number 3, you know, but it was a priority. It certainly was. But you know, one of the things that's interesting is to hear Abraham Lincoln. He's not really understood as a character. None of our presidents are, by the way. George Washington, Abraham Lincoln. And to know the truth is more, you can't really worship these guys like we do in history, in public opinion. Because, you know, there was times where Abe Lincoln, he would go down in the South and he says, I don't want to end slavery. It depends on what audience he was doing. But he would be in the North, he was like, I want to end slavery. He'd go down South, I don't want to end slavery. I don't care. And then he would say, oh, send them all back to Africa. that was his solution, right? So, you know, I kind of, you know, it's disappointing. All your heroes will be gone by the end of this class. I'm just joking. Yeah, go ahead, Bethany.
Yeah, just like on that topic, like slavery was like a really big part of like their whole culture and economy. So like just to fully get rid of it like in one full sweep would kind of leave the whole South economically unstable, or maybe have them fall into like a depression because of the cotton and sugar produced there. So there's like abolitionists, you know, and then there's also I forgot what they're called, but to slowly reduce slavery instead of all at once. So that just kind of made me think of what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, I guess I'll just say it now, but the moral of the story is this is, and I have to start back 100 years before this, or, you know, almost 100 years is, so the Industrial Revolution happened in England, right? Has anyone studied the Industrial Revolution? And so the Industrial Revolution is this, like, so the Industrial Revolution in 2 minutes is like this. England was responsible for it. That's where it started. And the moral of the story was textiles. So it started with textiles, clothes. So before the Industrial Revolution, everyone made their own clothes. And at this point, and there's a really good book, God, what is it called? I think it was The Rise and Fall of Empires or something like that. I read in college. But what they did was they had cotton in India. So cotton really started in India. This really the large kind of source for the Industrial Revolution, and it got shipped to England. And then the railroad came along, and the railroad allowed mass commerce and trade, and that stimulated the steel industry, the petrol industry, the creating of locomotives, and on and on and on. You have the Industrial Revolution, you have manufacturing. It all started in England way, way, way before this. Not way before this, but before this. And so that's where you have this kind of movement to our end. And now the North started representing England. It started representing all the things that England had, which was the railroad, manufacturing, the manufacturing of clothes, right? So you would ship the raw materials. So the raw materials would be down south, right? The cotton, the raw materials, the plantation, the agriculture, you'd have to grow the cotton, you pick the cotton, and then that gets pushed, that gets mailed or freighted to the North, where they manufacture and make clothes. So you had two different economies, two different Americas coming to a head at the Civil War. And the next chapter will cover this more in detail, but you have a changing of labor relations. So you have, the North didn't have slavery, it had wage labor, right? People getting paid. Down the South, you had slavery. And to some extent, they were kind of the same. And that's what we'll talk about in the next chapter is, these folks in the North weren't living much better than the folks in the South. They just weren't slaves, right? They were living in squalor, you know, in their own feces and pee and all that. They had no sewer system. It was disgusting, right? And so that's we're going to cover that in the next chapter. So you had this kind of two worlds, two economies, but in a way, the poor white person and brown person, mostly white, was very similar to the South, the slave in the South. They were just a different color. One was getting paid and one wasn't, but they were very, 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 very similar in the fact that no one was happy. No one wanted to be that. So you have the Civil War coming into a head when you have these two economies being, one was antiquated. So the South was kind of dated, right? It's like pagers. You remember those? We used to have pagers, or the horse and buggy. You know, you have moments in history where things become obsolete and you don't need them anymore because you have wage laborers that basically you can treat the same way, just give them $1 a day. And it's an easier system. And so the North was like, hey, this slave thing, it doesn't really make sense. We don't need it. We don't care for it. Let's just move away from that. And so you have the South, right? Imagine now and this is why imagination is important in history. Imagine being a Southern slave, a plantation owner with thousands of slaves, and your family is rich. You're rich, your kids are rich. And this is the elites, right? There was 2/3 of the South whites were not rich, by the way. Only 1/3 of the South was rich, the whites. So 2/3 when the South went to war, they're like, we're not fighting this war for us. We don't have slaves. So 2/3 of the whites were like, I don't like this war. So they had riots. They had conscription riots. And so you have that in the North and the South. But imagine yourself being a slave owner and you're really wealthy, and all of a sudden the northern business person comes down and say, look, we're going to change your whole world, your whole economy. So that's the essence of the Civil War. And then you have race, you have emancipation, slavery, all that mixed in together. So the complicated truth takes time to understand. And that's what I hope you have to invest your time to understand these immense concepts. And you have to use your imagination too. Yes, Jared.
Yeah, just to like kind of add on to what you're saying, there was a few stories in like the text that I read where like specifically there's one about like there's a slave who like escaped on one of the slave owners' horses or something. And eventually later on, like the owner like and was like, it was when after he went to the north, and they were trying to she was like mad at him because he stole the horse. And it's like the white people almost felt like they were like owed something by them. Like it seemed kind of, I don't know. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is weird. And definitely, yeah. That's what I would say too. Awesome, Jared. Thank you. Thanks for your comment. All right, so I kind of want to hear everyone's voice, if you don't mind going down the line. If no one's talked before, please talk. Anything. Again, you talk about contemporary events, anything. I just want to get the ball rolling.
I have a question. So do you think minimum wage system, is it like same thing as a slavery system? Like,
okay,
minimum.
so I took an economics course, and let me give you an example of what I think. For you to have a normal American life, you need about $140,000 a year. And that's to have college, to have vacation, to have cars, this and that. I think it was like 150, right? So anything below that, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, I think. And so if you're making what, under 100 grand, you're not really living a good life. And that's with two people, and you got three kids. And so that's why most people have two incomes, right? Both people work. In the 50s, for instance, one man or woman, it was usually the man, could work. The wife could stay home, and they had enough money to go on vacation, to take their kids to school, to have a car, house, blah blah blah, right? So what happened since the 50s? So the 50s is like the golden era, people would say, for your question, for wages, for the minimum wage. What's happened since then? It's called stagflation, where we have a stagnant economy and we have inflation. So we've made the same amount of money, but everything went up 3 to 4%, 400%. So now our money doesn't go as far, and we haven't made any more money at all. And this is part of the reason why you see populism rise throughout the world. This is why Donald Trump got elected, because the world doesn't work anymore. We don't make enough money to live a good life. So what do? We blame the immigrants, right? We blame this person. We blame the Muslims. We blame this. But at the end of the day, it's your question that's the problem. We don't make enough money to live a good life. And that's the main problem for the whole world in general. What's happening, it's stagflation. It's simple, but people don't want to see it that way. And it's also automation. So robots and factories. So we're being replaced by robots and automation on a scale never seen before. So to answer your question, yeah, the minimum wage is $15 is not enough. And because I'm talking about having a good life, not making it. I'm talking about like thriving, living a good life, going on vacation, buying your favorite guitar, whatever, you know what I mean? Living a cool life where you're like, this is dope. And that's where we're at as a society. But mind you, what you'll find out in the next chapter is it's always been this way to some extent. We always were being shorted by the capitalists. They're always squeezing us. I mean, if you look at the inequality of equity gap of wealth distribution, I think like the top 1% have more money than all of us. You know what I mean? It's crazy. And so like Jeff Bezos and Amazon and all these folks, like they're not the problem, but they could be part of the solution. The problem is in general is a bigger concept than that. But yeah, the minimum wage, I'm always going to fight for more and more. And certainly businesses will fight against that, push back, because then they'll probably suffer, small business. But yeah, we don't make enough money to answer your question to live a good life, unfortunately. But you're gonna really like this book though, by the way, Fadi, because you're gonna love it, man. Keep going. So let's hear from Sophia. Since you got the dog face, I'm gonna pick you. I've been waiting to hear from someone else, so I'll pick on you first, if you don't mind.
Honestly, I can't really add anything because I didn't get a chance to read the chapter yet.
Okay, cool photo, by the way. I like it.
Thank
I
you.
will definitely
Only
remember
best
you.
Picture I got.
That's great. So yeah, no worries. This week is chill. It's totally chill. Big Via. Is that how I say your name?
Big Vi.
Big Va.
Yeah,
That's a cool name. I like it.
thanks. So, to be honest, what caught my attention the most was mostly like question 2, how the war wasn't for blacks but using the blacks, and then something else was how you said the Irish were treated just as them. They were like segregated. But
Yeah.
when they were building that bridge, I don't remember what the name of it. They were also the Irish were segregated from the blacks too. So that kind of was weird.
Yeah. And the whole mascot thing, right, is going on right now. And Native Americans, and we've been talking about getting rid of the Redskins for quite some time, for decades. And the Irish have the Fighting Irish, right? It's the only other like white brand with a mascot on it. And I just think that's really interesting,
Yeah.
that as we're having this conversation, no one's bringing up this, the Fighting Irish, and that's kind of like, I don't know, that's not good, is it? I don't know, is it? I'm not personally attached to it, but I think the whole mascot thing is important, interesting too. That's an interesting topic. So,
And
okay.
oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask like what you think about it because you're Native American. Yeah. What was your thought when it happened?
Well, Redskins is a racial slur.
Right.
There's no doubt about it. It's like the honkies, the crackers. I could say that because I'm white. But I mean, but that would be the indicative thing, or the Caucasianists, or it'd be like, it's that ridiculous. It's a straight up racial slur. And for the longest, the owner of the Redskins said he wasn't going to change it. And he wasn't. He said, over my dead body, until Coca-Cola, Pepsi, all of a sudden said, look, we're going to drop you. And so when it came to the almighty dollar, someone said, we're ran by money, or someone said it earlier. It's like, yeah, that's really what it's all about. And in this case, it was when the money came up to the table, that's when they said, okay, we'll change the name. Now they're the Washington football team, which is kind of funny, right? So yeah, I'm a huge football fan, by the way. Chargers. Looking forward to the Super Bowl this weekend, and it's been a really nice reprieve from all this COVID junk. So thank God for sports, right? All right, so let's hear Caitlin, Ulysses, Noe, or Joanna, or
I
Mai.
did have a question. So you know how you said only 1/3 of the people in the South had slaves? So was the other 2/3 against it, or were they still like did they still agree with it?
Oh yeah, they were totally against it. Yeah, absolutely. The 2/3 that did not have slaves in the South, and I'm looking at my notes to make sure I'm correct. But yes, and they had these drafts in the North and the South to fight. And I don't know about you, and we're going to cover it in Vietnam, but we had drafts here. And a lot of folks, like my dad went to college to avoid the draft in Vietnam. He got his degree. Probably if it wasn't for Vietnam, he probably wouldn't have got his degree. That's probably true. So yeah, so you imagine right, being signed up to fight for this war, to defend, for the South, it was to defend slavery, for sure, for real. but to the north, it was something altogether different. But for the South, so yeah, and you're gonna go die for what? You don't even own a slave. You don't even care.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's the kind of the point of that and they had draft riots in the North and the South, because this war, for most, it wasn't fought for your own interests. It was fought for someone else's,
Okay.
So yeah, if you were that 2/3. But then again, though, a lot of these folks volunteered, though. Let me put that.
Volunteer to go to war?
A lot of these folks, like those poor white population, the 2/3, a lot of them signed up and volunteered. I think 200,000 or something like that volunteered. So there was the draft, and then there was the volunteer. And maybe, though, just like here, maybe you saw volunteer because you have no other options.
Yeah.
So that's something to consider too, just to balance that out. It wasn't all against the war. Some of these folks signed up to fight.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm making sure my notes are proper, but yes. All right. So it's interesting to see. And so that's why I really like this book. It's A People's History of the United States. So this is about those folks that are written out of history books. So that's what we'll be talking about through the duration of this course. So if you're wondering where we're going, this is kind of the course content. We'll be talking about people like you and me if we were born back then. I was born in poverty. To some extent, we were born in government foods. I lived in government housing subsidies. Like the house I have in Verona now is a government house. It was by the HUD program. The Housing and Urban Development Program was created in 1973 or 68 by President Johnson on the war on poverty. So my family in particular lived in deep poverty. Well, we have a casino now, and that got us out of poverty. But my point is this book will be talking about, unless you come from affluence, this is talking about us. If we were there, and that's why I like it. About, oh, hey, I see myself in this book. So if you see yourself in this book, then I hope you do. And then as you're going on this journey together, let's figure out like your passion and then your research topic. So I'm going to keep bringing that up maybe every class, just to spark interest, because you got to figure a topic out that you're passionate about. Okay, Joanna, you're doing the old walk away buddy hug photo. All right. Did I say your name right, Joanna? I think that's how you say it. Your audio is it says on, but I can't hear anything. All right. Okay. Well, we'll move on. Oh wait. Did I hear it? Did she chat? Okay. That's fine. You can always put a chat in there if you're having audio issues, excuse me, and we can use that too. So anyways, so Ulysses or Caitlin or Noe or Jacqueline.
I had a question about when men used to be the sole person to have household income. When you said that women would also work, would they get paid around the same, or would they get or would they get paid less than the men would?
So the 50s was an interesting time in the fact that very conservative time. This was the red, communism, right? The Red Scare. And a lot of women didn't work at the time. They were domestic, they didn't have to. That was kind of what I was trying to say earlier, is now you need two incomes. The mom, the dad has to work, and you got to put the kids in daycare or stay at grandma's, and it's a rat race. Back in those times, well, we had, the Ford Motor Company was pumping cars out. It was like the height of consumerism, really. And and a big reason for that is after World War II, everyone was destroyed except us. We were the only ones standing. So we were the leader. It was between us and Russia. And you had this insane expansion of economic growth. And so most women didn't work. If they did, well, for instance, let me give you an example. You couldn't get a PhD. They wouldn't accept you. I knew folks that grew up around that time that my idols in my field of study, Florence Shippick, she couldn't get a PhD here. She had to go to Hawaii. So you were denied work. You were denied a PhD spot in a major university, and it was a man's world, unfortunately. If you did work, yeah, I'm certainly you were probably paid half, and so this was the height of extreme racism as well as discrimination against women and misogyny. The word would be misogyny, right? So I took a class on that, misogyny, at USD, and it was fascinating. So there's a real history. It goes back hundreds and hundreds of years, and you talk about the Salem witch trials and all that. And that's kind of where you got to start on your topic. You got to go to the Salem witch trials. And a lot of reason why they did that is because those were strong, powerful women, and they called them witches because they were going against their idea of what a woman should be. They shouldn't be independent. They shouldn't be strong, and they need to know their role. And so that's the history of misogyny that is in other cultures, but it's very American. But on the other note, though, if you study Native American, we're not like that. Native American tribes are maternalistic, where in fact women sometimes have more power and equal or more power. So it's a very European thing to some extent when we talk about these things. And that's why I appreciate studying other cultures and stuff where you don't have those things, and especially if I were a woman, and hopefully we're going that direction as like Kamala Harris is elected vice president, right? So I think the arc of history is bending towards justice and the right way. But man, we've come a long way. So yeah, that's something that's a great paper topic if you want to keep going down that way. Just start, like if I were you, just write that down, possible paper topic, and just keep going with that. So yeah, I would love to hear that. And at the end, you're going to teach all of us, because I want to know that answer too. I don't know that answer, if I'm honest, very well. I just know a little bit. So I would love that to expand on that. All right, so Noe, Ulysses, or Jacqueline. I think those are the 4 folks who haven't talked yet.
Oh, quick question.
Yeah.
Is your tribe patriarchal or matriarchal?
Very good question. So the Kumeyaay are patrilineal, and that means we are our father's clan. So if I have I'm born and my dad is Lachusa, that's our clan. Say my mom's Waipuk, I'm a Lachusa. So we're patrilineal, but patriarchal is different, right? That means the man has more power. So our Kwaipai, our leader, was the leader, but they weren't executive leaders at all. They were just more arbiters of disputes. So although we had male leaders, I feel like the balance was equal. Men and women had equal power. And one of the things we use as Native Americans is the medicine wheel. So if you look at the medicine wheel, one of them is male, one of them is female. This goes like a cross. And the whole point of it is to find equilibrium. You don't want to be one way or the other too much. You want to be right in the middle. And that's one of our virtues as Native people is you always want to have balance between the male and the female. So although we're patrilineal, I don't think we're patriarchal. Does that make sense? So yeah, it's okay. Trust me, that's a whole dissertation right there, what you just said. I mean, you could write a book about it and people will be like, no, you're wrong, you're right. It'd be a great book debate. So yeah, verdict's still out on that one.
All right.
I have a question about Native American. Can somebody like foreign married from Native American, like inside the tribe or not?
Oh, can you say that, rephrase that question, please? Fadi?
Like, can somebody like coming from foreign country married from the tribe, like from Native American or not?
Oh yeah. Oh,
You can. Oh, okay.
we're very inclusive people.
Mhm.
I think the most inclusive people on the planet, personally, Native American people, and that's why we're so mixed. So we marry anyone and everyone, and that's why like none of us look, like the atypical Native Americans anymore. There's a lot of African American looking natives. There's a whole thing called the Black Native Americans, for instance. It's a whole group. I would be the white Native Americans, right? So you have all these different mixtures, and when it comes to that, but see, Native people, a lot of people don't like that because we're losing our blood quantum, and that's a whole nother topic. But the way I look at it is, my dad didn't care, so I don't care. Yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
You also got to think too that human beings been on this planet for a long time. So there's a thing called mixed race too.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or we are so much more mixed than we want to admit. That's what I always say. I mean, people say they're 100% Kumeyaay. It's like, how do you really know? You know what I mean? Like, you could be all kinds of different tribes and different whatever. So yeah, I think we're way more mixed as a rule. So why were the women paid half? I'm so confused on that. You can explain that again, please. Okay, so why were the women paid half? It's because men are just not good employers, to answer that question, and because they could. And there was this history of misogyny that goes way, way, way back. Actually, it goes all the way back to Adam and Eve, by the way. And the reason why is who's the one that took the apple? Wasn't Adam, it was Eve. And so
Eve. Yeah.
it was Eve, yeah, right. So I hope I said that right. So yeah, so the history of misogyny, and it was an interesting class. It was a really cool professor at USD. It goes all the way back to, you got to go back to Adam and Eve. So this misogyny literally means hatred of women. So this misogyny goes all the way back to the beginning of times, but it's European Christian Judeo. If you talk about Native American, there's certain tribes where women had more power than men. There's quite a bit of them actually, where they're matrilineal, they're matriarchal. And so when we're talking about this specific comment of women being paid less and all that, you have to understand it in the cultural context that you are talking about. Now, let me just go off on one more tangent on this topic. So Muhammad, right? I've studied Islam for quite some time. Muhammad gave women rights for inheritance. Before Muhammad, and you always hear bad things about Islam and Muslims, right? There's way more good than bad, of all religions, by the way. Muhammad gave women rights for inheritance that were never there before. So to some extent, Muhammad gave women more rights than other religions. For instance, in England, women have zero inheritance, a big zero, right? So if I'm a woman, would I rather be English or Muslim? I'd rather be Muslim. I want to get my parents' house when they pass away, stuff like that. So just you got to understand these. It's a very complicated. That's a very complicated one. I would love to hear more on it, and it's an entire class, by the way, that I took about 10 years ago. So got to dust off the old brain there. Okay, so I want to hear from everyone, if you don't mind. Ulysses to go. Jacqueline, yeah, that was good enough for that comment. I dig it. Noe, or you?
Okay, yeah, I'll go.
Okay, let's hear it, man.
All right. I mean, I still have a question about the raising the minimum wage and stuff.
Okay.
So wouldn't when you raise the minimum wage increase inflation as well?
So inflation, here's the best way I'll explain inflation. It's so Rome. So when Rome started, Rome became Rome because they took all the gold from Carthage. They went to war. That's how you used to become rich back in the day. You by force, you take it, right? They took all the gold. They had gold, gold, gold. They throw it in the streets, coming back from the Punic War 1, Punic War 2. And then over time, though, what happens is Rome's army became so big, their expenses became so much, they started printing money with less and less and less gold in it. So your coin now has half the gold as it did 100 years ago. And so to some extent, that's the easiest way I can explain what inflation is, but that's what inflation is. It's just printing money. So now what we're doing with this stimulus money, we're printing money. What's that going to do? It's going to lead to inflation, right? We're getting our stimulus checks, what, $1.9 trillion and coming up for the third stimulus package. So all this, that's what the Republicans are worried about. And rightfully so. The Democrats are like, let's just spit money out. Let's spit money out. And I understand that too, but you got to understand both sides of the argument. If you keep printing money, your money is going to be worth less. So my point is the minimum wage is not really related to inflation. What the minimum wage will do is now business owners are going to have to drive up goods. So your bagels, I just had a bagel sandwich. We got a killer bagel shop down the street. That bagel sandwich was $7. Now it's going to be $8. They're going to pass it on to us. So it's going to mean, and that's inflation, right? Because now my $7 doesn't get me my bagel sandwich. I need to put $8 in, right? So to some extent, minimum wage will create inflation indirectly. Does that make sense? It will create inflation though, but not directly. But it'll just be by driving the cost of goods up. But you got to ask yourself, a living wage to me is justice. It's morality. If we are a moral society, we need to have these morals and values. And that's where the redistribution of wealth comes in, and people are like, whoa, 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 whoa. And that could be a great paper topic as well, the redistribution of wealth, which will be covered thoroughly in the next chapter and going forward. So yeah, good questions. Wow. American history is coming alive. I like it. So great. Does anyone have any burning questions? Oh no. Okay, go for it.
Yeah. So just to be clear, this week we don't have any homework. Just reading the chapter and that's it.
Wait, let's go to the module. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna probably do this quite some every class because I want you guys to keep on pace. So we're going to have a quiz next week. Boom, right here. Due on Wednesday. But look, it's not going to be hard. I don't think so personally. I'm making it easy as possible. I'm going to put the questions on here. I have them ready already. I'll just show you. So these questions, let me just pop it up. Yeah, I'm glad good question.
Okay, so do we need to study the questions before the quiz, or do we use them as open notes?
Right. So yeah, exactly. The second one. So what you're going to do is, and I just pulled it up, and I try to make this course, like I want everyone to get an A. I'll tell you that right now. I'm not trying to make this course hard at all. I'm making it challenging because I want you to get to the next level and when you transfer to state. So that's my main goal. So here's the questions. Can you see that? And I just got started on it. You can see the answers aren't done. I'll be finishing it when in about an hour or two. So this is what the questions will look like. And you're gonna print this out and then read chapter 10 and then you're gonna fill in the blanks. It's gonna be pretty easy, I think. So I'm making it as not easy as possible, but as I can't think of a better word than easy, but I'm gonna make it as long as you just read the book, you're gonna get an A. I'll just tell you that. And print this out. And then, because at the end of the day, that's all I want. I just want to make sure you read the assignments. So you're going to go through, oh yeah, there's that legislation. Oh, there's that draft rights of 1863. Boom. you'll have it. And then that's how the course will go for, you'll have 5 of those. And yeah, so make sure, just to make it easy on you, don't start reading until you have the questions, or read out the questions. So you don't have to read it twice. Print it out. Then when you do the quiz, you just plug in the answers. Boom, 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 boom. Everyone should get an A. Sound good? Yeah, go ahead, Nolan.
Yeah. So when will you post the chapter 10 questions?
Right now.
Okay, thanks.
I was doing it all morning. Give me an hour. I'll be done in an hour. So yeah, and I'll have them done, like, that'll hopefully be my schedule. I'll have the questions done right before we get there. So I'm kind of a little behind, about a day behind in my work, and I'll have that. And so you'll have 5 of those quizzes and 5 reading responses, and hopefully that's not going to be too demanding. And my goal is to make this class enjoyable, if that's the proper word. And I think, the main thing for me is the content. The content's really good stuff, and you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to have some cool dinner conversations at Thanksgiving, like, hey, guess what? Here's why, this happened. And so that's my main goal is, you'll be the person, to have some cool, to spread the knowledge to your family and friends. All right. So we're going to end a little early, if that's okay with you. Is there any other questions about the assignments, the Canvas, the syllabus, anything? All right, let me check the chat box just in case. Did I miss anything? I kind of forgot we were supposed to read the chapter before Thursday, or can we do it? Okay, yeah. So this last chapter, to answer your question, Sophia, is fine if you didn't read it. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Just move forward. And at the end of the day, look, we're not having a final. We're not having midterms, so it's not going to be comprehensive anything. You just if you miss a chapter, that's fine. Just keep going, and you can always do an extra credit assignment. So I have those extra credit assignments that are the same amount as a quiz or a reading response. So I would love to have everyone do an extra credit assignment if you have the opportunity. For the reading, do we read all the pages? Because, oh yeah, so all the pages. So yeah. Oh, so yeah, so it's only, honestly, it's like, I think 400 pages for the 18 weeks. So what I would do is, let me just show you what I do. So what I do is I create a reading schedule. So those are my readings. Can you see that? So I put for 17 weeks. And what I'll do is I went through and I did all my reading every week, how many pages, and then I put it on my calendar. So boom, boom, and then spread it out. Spread all your assignments and your reading assignments and your actual assignments. Put it on your calendar and spread it out through the course of the semester, so you can schedule your readings. Yeah, Sophia, go for it.
Okay, this sounds kind of dumb. I read the syllabus, but I wasn't too clear. So are like the majority of assignments, excluding the paper, besides the paper, are the majority of the assignments like the quizzes for reading, or are there like other little assignments too?
So the quizzes, there's 5 quizzes. You'll get one out of the way this week. And then there's 5 reading responses. Reading responses, I think hopefully you'll like them more. They'll be more free. You can connect your personal experiences to them, your own life, like that minimum wage question, throw that in there. That's what it's all about for me, is I want you to enjoy this stuff. I want to hear your personal experiences, your personal questions. So I know quizzes are kind of lame sometimes, so I did 5. I'm trying to balance, and the reading responses will be to that balance for me, because that'll be a chance for you and me to connect a little deeper, and I'll respond often with a pretty good response, long responses to your papers. So that'll be our way to kind of go back and forth, especially with not, I miss the face-to-face so much, and I'm sure you do too. So the reading responses are a chance to kind of have a little bit of that back and forth. So yeah, so 5 quizzes, it's 18 weeks, 17 weeks, 5 quizzes. That was probably one of my bigger things too, is how many quizzes and all that. And the balance is hopefully there. And I will suggest this, if there's something I'm doing that you would like other diff change, just let me know. I can always, like say you have a professor or teacher that's doing something different, maybe I can learn from, let me know. Okay, so yeah, so if you want to buy a paper copy of the book, I'll just end on that. I would prefer, I prefer paper copies of the book. After a while, I think screen time is bad on your eyes and it's not good. So I think the paper copy book it's on Amazon for $14, right? So I would suggest to do that. Does everyone have paper copies, or how many folks? No one? All right, so we got one. Yeah. So it'll be a good book to have in your library. I got a library right there and then a library right there. I love building my library. So yeah. All right. So we had a wonderful class today. I'm very excited. I hope you're all doing well. And I really, really appreciate this opportunity to share with you U.S. history. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. So, all right, Jared, thumbs up. Sounds good, everybody. And I will see you 11 o'clock next Tuesday. All right. Everyone good?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye. Have a good day, guys.
See you.